Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, January 15th, 2023. Coming at you live from Floored Media in Rockville Center. Another great show coming up for you tonight. Two guests coming up, two great special guests. Andrew Gross of Newsday will be joining us, as well as Islanders alum Bruno Gervais, hopping on to hang out with us. Joining me tonight is Mr. Chris Botta. My name is Sean Cuthbert. Chris, how we doing?
Doing well. I'm sure all the Giant fans are happy out there. A big win today. Good for New York.
Bills fans, too. Barely squeezed one out there earlier.
Yeah, good day for the state.
Yes, indeed.
And New Jersey, too.
Oh, that's right. New Jersey. So, folks, I want to remind you that we are happy to be presented by Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington, 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip, and, of course, UBS Arena at Belmont. Also proud to be sponsored by Lost Farmer Brewing Company, located at 63A 2nd Street in Mineola. And happy to be sponsored by brand new sponsor, Main Street Board Game Cafe in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game for you. From old favorites to the hottest new releases, we have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens and unplug your game for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, or Game Night Live communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events, and we're located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village, and you can go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. That is mainstboardgamecafe.com. Main Street Board Game Cafe, find your crowd, unplug your game. So, Chris, a 1-1 week for the New York Islanders, who finally came home. A lot of home games this month in January to finish it out. And they look better against Dallas. They didn't get the result you want. They get the tie, but then, of course, they lose the skills competition. A decent game against Minnesota. End up having an awful finale to that game. Hanging on for a long 1-0 lead there and end up blowing it. And then they come out and play a good game against Montreal. They take the early 2-0 lead in the first period, which doesn't happen often for this year's New York Islanders. And they kind of hang on a little bit at the end, but they squeak out the 2-1 win. 1-1. Think we need to see more out of this team. What did you see out there?
Yeah, I would say in terms of results, Sean, I would give the Islanders a C.
Okay.
It's probably a lower grade than based on your descriptions. And in terms of performance, probably give them a C-. Montreal, you know my position on that, especially when you're in a losing streak. I don't care how you win. So they won. I think we could debate how good they played in the second half of that game.
Right.
You know, so it's very much a mixed bag for this week. Where I'm at with this team this week, and now I could say it because I had a week off, and thank you to Mr. Rosner for stepping in, is that we now know that this team is somewhat in the middle. That This is a team that's going to fight for a playoff spot, that they'll be in the fight, and they're going to fight for it. There'll be another time to talk about what this means in the big picture for Lou Lamoriello, for the coach, for the future of this team. Like, is this a step back compared to where they were in the Trotz era, and was that all worth it? But the way I see it now, between now and the trade deadline, the focus is this team going to make the playoffs? What do they need to do to add to the lineup? What should Lou Lamoriello do? So we'll put aside, again, my position is we'll put aside the big picture for maybe another day. It could be March or April, right? But right now, it's here's where they are in the race. Here's what they need to do, because right now, this is an average team, maybe a slightly above average team.
Right, and I said it before we went live here. We were kind of seeing a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of team here, where there's nights where they look like they can line up against almost any team in the league, right? They can beat the Colorados of the world. They've done it. They've come from behind and done it. They beat some of the top teams in this league. They hung with Dallas. They're one of the top teams. They get to the shootout against them. I think that's a small victory, especially coming from the road trip that they had. That's fine. And then you have games against Arizona. You look at all these lost points, and I've been bringing this up periodically throughout the season, and this may end up being a year. Hopefully it doesn't come down to whether they get in or not, but let's say they even do get a playoff spot. You get to the end of April, the middle of April, when the playoff spots are all seeded, and you might say to yourself, man, if they had just lost a couple, they extended a couple of games past regulation, they might have had home ice. They might have gotten the 3 seed. You know what I mean? They might have gotten the first wild card, and it just seems like when they're closing out games and on the losing end, they can't do it, with that extra push to get to that final frame. And when they do, when they get to that shootout, it's not pretty.
And I'm just not seeing anything special about them. There were times earlier in the season where it was like, all right, maybe they are back. Maybe they did.
Yes.
Maybe they did run it back. But now we're kind of in a stretch here of about 4 or 5 weeks where they've just been okay.
Right.
And again, good that they won the Montreal game. That's all they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if after that start, after the 2-zip lead Saturday night, if they continued to take it to Montreal, and give credit to Montreal, they blocked a lot of shots.
Sure.
I thought they played a pretty strong second half of the game. I think that's one of those classic games that both teams and the fans of both teams could look at in 2 different ways and not be wrong. Like, I think
Sure.
Montreal was probably pretty happy, and then they bounced back and they beat the Rangers on Sunday night, which is impressive. I think Lane Lambert was right to say he was really happy with his performance. But that said, it's a 2-1 game, 2-1 final, and it wasn't like, oh no, okay, now they're back. So they head into this game Monday night against Washington, and then it's just amazing to look at that schedule. I slide through. My thing is on the NHL app, right? So Wednesday, Boston,
Yeah.
Thursday, Buffalo, Saturday, then Monday. Like, it doesn't stop. It's relentless. This is fun. And to me, this is just like, we are on the path to the trade deadline to see what they do, to see where they stay in, what they do to stay in the mix. But I don't think this is a team that's going to run away with a playoff spot or fall way back too. So for me, Hockey Night in New York, whether I'm co-hosting with you or not, it's the 6-7 week run up to an exciting time around the trade deadline to see if they get in the tournament.
Yeah, no question about it. This is going to be a big month for them. These games coming up are huge, especially starting with Washington tomorrow night. But we'll talk more about that. But right now we got a break because we got Andrew Gross of Newsday coming up. So, folks, I want to thank you so much for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. And, of course, your favorite podcast providers are going to take that break. We'll be right back.
I don't want to hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it, I hate those Lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line Combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Miss the days of mixtapes and arcades? Love the taste of a bold IPA or maybe an ice-cold lager? There's a place where all of those magical things come together. Lost Farmer Brewing Company. At 63A East 2nd Street in the heart of Mineola, Lost Farmer combines a love of the 80s and a passion for quality beer to create brews that can only be described as gnarly, radical, and totally tubular. The retro vibe of the tasting bar will amp up your nostalgia while the blend of both local and exotic ingredients amp up your taste buds. Beer not your thing? Crack open a can of cider or sip a Chardonnay on the extended patio. Order up from the snack menu. You can even bring your own. If you're more of a homebody, pick up a growler to go or order online at lostfarmerbrewing.com. And for all of Long Island's hockey fans, Lost Farmer created the delicious Stable Shaker American Lager to celebrate the newly built UBS Arena at Belmont Park. Whether you're at the stable for a hockey game, concert, or a comedy show, you can find Stable Shaker by can and draft around the arena. So raise a cup to the next cup with Lost Farmer Brewery, the future of Long Island craft beer.
time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching Hockey Night in New York at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. And joining us right now is the great Andrew Gross from Newsday. Andrew, how you doing?
I'm doing well. You guys got me now?
Yes, we do. Appreciate the patience. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Big Giants victory, huh?
Yeah. And honest, this is, I can tie it back to the Islanders because this is what I was thinking of.
Okay.
It reminded me of Barry Trotz's first year with the Islanders where, the expectations maybe weren't so high. You saw what good coaching could do, right? And good and a GM who could organize things, and they get the organization righted, and they go into the playoffs and they get that first victory, and it was a learning aspect, right? Because then they got smoked in the second round by Carolina, but all is said and done, and they come back stronger the next two seasons, and I think all of us thought maybe the Giants could beat the Vikings. I don't know how much we think they can beat the Eagles, but I see a lot of similarities in the two organizations with the way the Giants are playing right now.
Andrew, I like that parallel, and I like that you're already willing to concede that the Giants are going to lose in the second round of the playoffs. But let's keep it on hockey here. So before you came on, Chris and I were talking about what a Jekyll and Hyde season the Islanders have had so far, right? A little bit of a roller coaster. String a couple of wins together, they look great. String a couple losses together, and then all of a sudden, the fan base is wondering what the hell is going on with this team. So, Andrew, you've been in a lot of NHL locker rooms. You've spoken to a lot of players, post-game, after a result, and you kind of get a gauge of the attitudes of the players and the confidence of the players. And with such a roller coaster season for this team, what's the vibe you're getting from these players in the locker room right now? Where's their confidence level where they haven't really been able to keep any consistency going, and they seem to keep almost, battling against themselves to have a successful season here?
Strangely enough, the players are saying all the right things. They're not necessarily always backing up their words, but they're saying all the right things about how they believe in the group and they know what they have to do to have success. And it's, a matter of a low execution here, a low execution there. It's not a personnel thing. I thought it was kind of revealing that out of everyone, it was Coach Lane Lambert, who usually gives away no information, was the one who said before the game yesterday, yeah, we're squeezing our sticks. And that was the most open window into where this team's mind frame is. And you know what? A 2-1 win against the Canadians aside, I still got to think they're going to be gripping the sticks a little bit against the Capitals tomorrow night, just because they haven't shown that they can score in bunches. And they haven't shown that they can string wins together, since the calendar turned to 23. So I thought it was out of left field that Lane Lambert was the guy who was, kind of pulling back the curtain out of all people.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, Andrew. And another great point is you're not going to have too much success if you're scoring 4 goals across 3 games in a week. And just to kind of talk about this team as a whole, and we've discussed the injuries. It looks like Kyle Palmieri might be back soon. Adam Pelech is skating. And to key on him for a second, how much does this team miss Adam Pelech right now?
Yeah. You can talk all you want about how steady Parker Wotherspoon has been in his absence, but Adam Pelech gives you a top pair defenseman if you're going to play him with Ryan Pulak, and he's missed as much now as he was when he tore his Achilles that one season. You just saw the team, struggle to be a 500 team without Adam Pelech, and I don't think anything's changed this time around. So the sooner he can get back, that's going to solidify things. Although, to be honest, it hasn't been the defensive efforts that have really been an issue, but how much of that is because Ilya Sorokin is playing out of his mind right now?
Andrew, it's Chris. I read your Sunday column today in the newspaper with my coffee, like we used to do back in the day. And the headline said, Lou Lamoriello needs to find scoring help for Islanders. We know the writer does not write the headline, the editor does. But do you feel that was a good reflection of your column?
Yeah, no, I think it was. I mean, I forget, I wrote that, it's 48 hours ago, so things kind of go in one ear and come out the other. But yeah, no, look, they're just not scoring enough goals. They don't have, I think I wrote, they don't have enough scoring amongst their wings. Yeah. And, it was nice to see Anthony Beauvillier get a goal, but that was his first goal in 9 games. And we've talked about, Josh Bailey's inconsistency in putting up production, and Kyle Palmieri's out. And it certainly looks like Oliver Wahlstrom is really out, for a long, long time. So they're getting thin on the wing as to players you can really rely upon. You saw, Lane Lambert use Zach Parisi and Bailey with Matthew Barzell the other day. And, no disrespect to Zach Parisi, who has given you more than you've paid for him over his 2 seasons with the Islanders.
Absolutely.
But he shouldn't be counted on as a top line wing at this stage in his career. He's really in a perfect spot when he skates with Jean-Gabriel Pageau. And I saw someone respond to me on Twitter, asking whether I had written that story 3 years ago. But we have been talking about, the need for Lou Lamoriello to import some scoring help. It seems like every season, and Kyle Palmieri being one of the bigger acquisitions that Lou Lamoriello has made, and that's been up and down. And poor Kyle, what has he missed? Like 23 out of 24 games. I'm losing count. I know he, basically missed a stretch, came back in Arizona, and pretty much went right back out again. With another high, almost a headshot, and he's been out now since December 16th. So we're getting close to a month with him here. And Adam Pelech, of course, as you mentioned, he's been out since December 6th. So yeah, no, Lou Lamoriello, it's incumbent upon him to help this team out at this point.
After you mentioned Oliver's injury potentially being very long-term, you wrote, yes, yes, yes. Hey, that was snarky. Lamoriello, you get it on Twitter, you got to give it back in the paper, right? Yes, yes, yes. Lamoriello is under pressure to make a move. So I ask you this, my friend. Islander fans are lucky in that I don't think there's a beat writer around who knows Lou Lamoriello and his ways and his methods better than you. Knowing where this team is, just a few games over 500, in the middle of the pack, fighting for a playoff spot, do you think that, I'm not going to hold you to this, will he make a move? We get asked this all the time too, but does it feel like the kind of place right now where perhaps in the next 3 to 8 weeks, Lou will make a move?
Yeah, I certainly, like I said, I think it's incumbent on him because he has shown so much trust in this core. And if you're gonna have that faith in this core, you got to give it the best chance to win. And right now, even if they get into the playoffs, they can be a dangerous team because they'll grind you down. But they're not going to be a dangerous team because they're going to, skate you out of the rink. And to compete with the Carolinas and, probably the Tampa Bays and Bostons, although, strangely enough, I like the Islanders matchup against the Bruins because I feel like they can play physical against the Bruins, and that over a 7-game series, that'll wear the Bruins down. But the point is, against elite competition, the Islanders don't quite have all the cards yet to be put in that class. And also, look, I'm not casting aspersions here. This is an aging core at this point. You don't know how many more runs these guys are really going to have together. So it's incumbent on Lou to give this core its best, maybe last chance here. Even though a lot of these guys are signed long term, it's getting to that point where, next season could be really the season where they age out, right? So I really think, and Lou's going to tell you it takes 2 to dance and 2 to make a trade, and you don't want to sell the future for maybe a short-term fix. But look, this may be the Islanders' best last chance for a couple of seasons. So if you're going to make a run, you're going to have to import someone. And you're not just scoring help, you might actually need a lefty shooting defenseman as well.
And Andrew, last one to follow that up before we let you go real quick. To play devil's advocate, you made a lot of great arguments for why this team should go out and make a deal, right? And I think it's true. If they're going to need somebody if they are going to compete with the other teams in the playoffs. My question is, we don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. And there's a lot of chatter about already. It's well known how thin the prospect pool is. They don't have a lot of guys coming up through the system. They've dealt their last 3 first-round draft picks. Is this something Lou kind of has to wait and see before it's even worth making a deal? Because God forbid he makes a deal, gives up more futures, and then they still fall on their faces and don't make the playoffs.
Well, I mean, it could be a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you wait and see, you may be out of it. Lou doesn't believe in rebuilding, so he wants to be in the playoffs this year. I'm not going to say his job is dependent on it, but it's getting to the point where he needs to be in the playoffs. Really, for the long-term viability of his administration here, I would think. So I think Lou is going to think short-term, heading towards the trade deadline. And you know what? Probably the sooner the better. I know the prices are probably a little bit higher right now, but it may be in Lou's best interest to make a move sooner rather than later, because this, like you said, this really is going to be a scramble to get into the playoffs. Now, I think the Islanders are lucking out a little bit in that there are some teams in the Atlantic Division that we thought were going to be right in the mix of it, that it may be that the Metro can get 5 teams in, where the Atlantic only gets 3 teams in. So now the Islanders, I mean, look, John Tortorella's got the Flyers playing really well, or at least playing hard. But I don't think the Flyers have enough talent to really sneak up into a real playoff race. So really, you're talking about the Islanders. If he can get 5 from the Metro, the Islanders needing to just knock one of these teams out. Maybe it's the Penguins who they're ahead of right now. They have 4 games against the Capitals. They have 3 games against the Penguins. I don't think anyone's knocking the Hurricanes or the Rangers or quite possibly the Devils out of a playoff spot at this point. But the Islanders just may need to knock that one team out. And so I don't think Lou's going to look at it as, this is something that cannot be accomplished. So that's why I really lean towards him, knowing that he absolutely has to help this core at this time.
Well, Andrew, excellent stuff as always. Appreciate your time, especially pulling you away from celebrating your Giants' victory. Congrats to you.
I am a Jets fan. I made that.
I wasn't sure.
I made that mistake. I made that mistake really early in life. So.
Sorry.
Well, then congrats to Giants fans out there. What can I say? Better luck next year. But Andrew, always a pleasure. Looking forward to next time, and have a great rest of your night.
Hey, Sean, Chris, always great talking to you guys. You be well. Have a great show.
Thanks
Andrew. So much. All right, folks. Great stuff from Andrew Gross. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, former New York Islander Bruno Gervais will be joining us. We'll be right back.
New York Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Thanks for giving some time to us. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to Hockey Night New York. We're live in Rockville Center, Long Island, and I'm really proud to be joined by the former Islanders defenseman, also Tampa and the Flyers, hockey analyst for RDS and 98.5 FM, Director of Client Relations for the Respect Group. Great job on that, buddy. And that is Bruno Gervais. Bruno, it's Chris Botto with Sean Cuthbert. How are you, buddy?
I'm really good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing
well.
so great. It is awesome to hear your voice, my friend. How are things going for you? You got a lot going on the analyst front with the family. Can you give the fans an update on how's life for Bruno Gervais these last few years?
Busy for sure. I ended up finishing in Europe, in Berlin, Germany, which was phenomenal. So much fun. It was great. And then retired. And the second I retired, I already had a little bit of a transition plan and offer with RDS. I've been kind of working with them over the summer. I know, like Chris, you were a witness of that quite a bit. But I always got along well with the media, and I always had a lot of fun working with them. So I kind of took that route a little bit. And it was good. It was a lot of fun. And I thought it was going to be a transition plan mostly, but ended up liking it even more than I thought. So I've been involved with RDS, which gives me a little bit of flexibility. And I don't really like to sit on the couch and relax. So there's a lot of other projects that are with that. But we got the 3 young kids. So they're all in school now. So we're just trying to keep up with the schedule. We're pretty much taxi drivers over the weekend, trying to enjoy. But I've been involved with the Respect Group as well. Working alongside the Sheldon Kennedy, Wayne McNeil, and we've been, working with the NHL. We've been working with so many different projects. So it's been this has been great. It's so much fun, and I wanted something that was a little bit outside of hockey, a little different as well, which suits it. It's perfect. And been involved with a little bit of coaching. I've been involved with the U18 organization here, where I played, where I grew up. So I've been involved with trying to help them as well. So trying to stay busy. You've
always been known, rightfully so, as one of the kindest players when you were playing and since. I'm curious, have you had any challenges with having to be critical at times of players?
Yeah.
Because we're about to ask you to criticize players. No, I'm kidding. How has that gone for you? Have you been able to find a balance, or what's your approach to that, my friend?
This was a debate right off the bat, and when they were interested, for me, that's the one thing I didn't want to do, and especially, obviously here in Quebec, there's a lot of media involved too around hockey, and it's a tough market. It's a big market. It's close to a religion here, so it gets intense. And for me, I didn't want to be complaining when things weren't going, the way they wanted. So I said, I would love to come and do this, but I'm not just about the Canadians. I'm going to be about hockey, and what I would really like to do is, find the positive, but do a little bit more teaching than anything else, and league wide. And find stories and different aspects, but don't come for me if you're trying to find a scoop, or if you're trying to, just, hit on someone's head and just be complaining about one guy, one situation. And they were all up for that. They really wanted to, diversify a little bit and be wider and brighter. So that's my point. And every time I do any type of analyze for the Canadians, the Sens, I do the Senators as well. I do the Rocket, the AHL team here in Laval for the Canadians. That's the angle I'm trying to bring. There's going to be a situation where obviously, you're expecting a little bit more of, a group of guys or a player or something like that, and that's going to happen. But nothing that the players don't know themselves. They're probably the hardest of everybody on themselves. So that's the angle I've been trying to bring, and I have a lot of fun doing it. And they've been really okay with that and open-minded about that.
Really great.
Hey, Bruno, Sean here. Thanks so much for joining us on the show. Pleasure to have you. So we're an Islander-centric show, so figured we touch a little bit on your career with the New York Islanders. Maybe you can just reflect a little bit about your experience playing for the Islanders, spending time on the island. And you got a taste of the playoffs playing for Ted Nolan in that one year. Maybe you could talk about that playoff series with the Buffalo Sabres and maybe just reflect on that time with the Islanders.
Well, for me, the Islanders and Chris Millsap as well, like, it's in my heart. It was really special. It was a special place. It was really, really, really hard for me to leave. It was my first heartbreak, but it was tough to go. It was an amazing time. Met a lot of great people on and off the team, but it was a fun experience. Obviously, like, I wish I experienced more games like we did, in the Nassau Coliseum for those playoffs, or when it get intense and winning against the Rangers, beating the Rangers at home, or those playoff games against Buffalo when you can feel, and it was just a step one, but you can see you can feel the city, you can feel like Long Island and the vibe, and when you would get to the rink and the intensity, the emotion, the noise, the presence with the fans and everything when we were there. So it's hard to imagine. Like, you're trying to picture like 3 more rounds and make it to the final and do that 4 years in a row. Off crazy it must have been. But just to have a small simple taste of it, that was a lot of fun.
That's fantastic, Bruno. And you mentioned that it was heartbreaking to leave the team, and I'd like to key in on that just because, over the years, Islander fans have been curious of whether, the Islanders are a destination, if it's a team that, players want to play for. And we typically hear stories like this, right? When there's players that leave the island, they're upset to leave, they want to stay. What was it about playing for the Islanders and maybe being on Long Island that was so heartbreaking for you? What was it about that team that was so special to you that kind of made you want to stick around?
Well, for me, it was obviously the team that drafted me. And I ended up going to my first camp. I was 18. And from that rookie camp, I was at rookie camp. And I was a 6th-round pick, right? So I go to rookie camp, and things went well enough to kind of convince Milbury back then to bring me to main camp. And I was like a dog in a bowling alley. Like, they had to put a chair for me in the middle of the room. They actually wrote my name on a piece of cardboard. Gervais, back then it was Scott Moon, I believe, and he didn't know how to spell Gervais. Like, he asked me, how do you spell Gervais? And my English was so broken that it was something that kind of looked like my last name, but it was that experience and getting there, and I ended up actually that I remember that training camp having a conversation with Steve Sterling that told me that I made the team, and we were about, all we had to do is kind of get the negotiation, get a contract done, because it's my first camp. I'm 18, and ended up signing my contract on the day of my birthday, October 3rd. We had like a team event, a golfing event. I on that day signed a contract, sat at Charles Wong's table ate my first lobster on that day. I feel so sorry for the people beside me because they were just covered in lobster juice after that dinner. I was learning how to crack those open. But so for me, it's one after another of those kind of experience of like just being a young teenager, leaving a small city in New Brunswick to getting to New York. And then from there, I ended up going to, the training camp of Team Canada, tore my ACL there. They flew me right away to New York and got the surgery done there. I did the rehab there, and then moved pro the next year when it was lockout year. So it's just all those firsts that you start building, you get to know. And then for me, it was just the one logo. Like, for me, it was the Islanders. And then you go from, playing in the A to make it to the NHL, and you see some of those young guys kind of drafted after you. And I would do rookie camps, but now, like, I knew how to get around it a little better. So I took some guys under my wing. Then you build those relationships. And I remember when Jeremy Colleton got there, like Blake Como. Then you got those young guys coming up. I remember living in a house with like Thompson, Jackman, Bailey, Oposo.
Wow.
I remember having a meeting with Gartino and said when John Tavares got in, it's like, hey, help the kid out. Like, he's a tremendous hockey player, he's great mind. Like, make sure we show him the ropes and stuff like that. So like those are the moments where you you feel like it's not your team, like that's the one team you have. It's the people that you're going with, that you went from Bridgeport to Long Island, and Chris Campoli was one of them. So you're building something. And then for me, that first experience, because I was never traded before. Like I was never traded in junior or anywhere else. So for me, like you get to one team and you're with them all the way, and all you're trying to do is make that team better. So there was nothing else in my mind than just doing it in Long Island. So when it kind of it went the other way, and for me, it was good to have a fresh start, but physically, the knee problems I was having back then and at that moment, and now I understand a little bit more what the fresh start and, turning the page and moving on a little bit can be. But it was really hard when I realized it at the end of that season.
What is it knowing firsthand, better than anyone, what it takes to make it in the NHL and to earn every shift, every game, to now look ahead a decade later, maybe even more than a decade later, and see your friends Matt Martin and Joshua Bailey still on the team?
It's so nice. It's so impressive. I mean, it just, for like, especially Bailey, that just ended up staying in Long Island the whole time.
That's true.
From the outside, it kind of looks easy, right? Like he's always been there, he's always there. But just on a daily basis, like you said, there's always, depending on the result, depending on every game, depending on, every week, every month, every year, there's always, obviously, teams are just getting better and better and better, and they're trying to get better. You got young players coming in, players that come in, they're faster, stronger, better shot. Like, you got so much competition to keep that spot and keep doing well. You got to be like a phenomenal of an athlete to keep that and keep doing your role. And we were actually doing the game. I was with RDS and we were doing the game yesterday, and we were looking again at that line, like Clutterbuck and CZ Cuts and Matt Martin. And it's like, how, like, this is amazing what these guys been doing for so long. And in the type of role that usually around the league, you see a lot of changes. You see, like, the young talent coming in. There's a young prospect. They're going to be the first guy to kind of get pushed aside to make some room for a young kid when things are not maybe going, as well as you think for the team, or you're trying to bring some young guys in. And these guys, just what they bring to the table every night, they found a way to stick around and stay there. And there were some tough times too for Matt Martin, where things weren't going like he wanted, but he just battled through. And it shows a lot of the type of character and the type of player and the type of athlete they are. But for me, knowing a little bit about all this, it's especially the type of person. And you've got to be a great teammate and really appreciated, respected, and loved by your surrounding and your environment, for people to do that environment and say, you make us a better team when you're around. And that's what these guys did.
Beautifully said. I'd like to ask you to put on your analyst hat now as a defenseman. Pick any of them or all of them. Alexander Romanov, Ryan Pulock, Adam Pelech. Defenders, Pulock probably the most Gervaisian of the three. I just assume you know Romanov because you're in Montreal and in Quebec, and everybody knows everybody there. What do you think of any of those players, or all three of them, in terms of where they stand in their careers with the Islanders?
Well, first of all, as a group, they got to be a pain to play against. I mean, as a group, the Islanders for so many years now, there's just been that type of team. We were doing the game yesterday. It's that type of team that you go in there, you're like, oh my God, we're going to need, the team's going to need a miracle to score on these guys. And it's the type of, the type of players, I mean, they're big. Like Pollock, they're all 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", all around there, most of them. And Romanov is 6'1", but he's built like a tank. He can hit. And he's that type of player that he's going to be hard to play against. I'm curious to see where he can take his puck skills and his ability and playmaking and his shooting and everything else. Can he bring this to be more of a impactful, like top four, two-way, involved offensively and defensively. But for me, like that's the type of team. Like they're just, it doesn't matter who's on the ice. They're hard to play against. And that's for that defense, the defense unit. I think that's the message. That's what you see: long stick, smart, play hard, pay the price, block some shots. That's what you get from there. And you add to that amazing talent, so much poise in Noah Dobson. And I got a chance to meet him when he was in Bathurst because he played in the same junior team as I did. And I ended up making a trip there when they were in the conference final the year they won the whole thing. They won the Memorial Cup. And I remember sitting with Noah Dobson because the coach was an ex-coach of mine. And he asked me to sit with the young Noah Dobson back then because he told me, Noah puts too much on his shoulder and he's only 17. And he was so good. He was playing 25, 26 minutes a night and doing everything. But he said he puts a lot on his shoulders. So just check with him. Make sure he's all right. Make sure he's feeling good. He's enjoying himself and he's having fun. And what a mature guy. What a kid, like head on his shoulder. And it was a pleasure to talk with him. And ever since I've been, obviously watching his career. And I know that, the number 8 was going to be retired, but I asked to keep it down to make sure he can wear it. Not just joking, but it's phenomenal to see him. So he's one of those guys that ice in his veins, vision, and he's got such a big physique. Like he's 6'3" or 6'4", somewhere around there, and he's still like filling in, and he's going to get better and improve his game. And he's the type of guy that you can actually let sleep on the ice and he's going to be all right. Like he can spend a lot of time there. And he brings that skill and poise and everything to that defense core.
Bruno, fantastic stuff and an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I just want to say thank you so much for giving us all your time and have a great rest of your night. Thank you.
Hey, anytime, guys. It's always a pleasure. And I was supposed to make the trip down over the weekend. I can't make it because I got 2 games that I got to do, but it's just a rain check. I'll be coming down with the family, and I'll make sure that I swing by you guys and say hi.
And
sounds great.
Thank you, Bruno. And don't say any time because I'm going to text you every third Sunday to come on. So I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, folks. That was Bruno Gervais, Islanders alum. Great stuff from him. Nice little touch on the defense there, huh?
He's the best. Story time. I gotta share, and I know I'm always the first one to say let's not go long tonight. There's a million stories, and I know that we say a lot on this show, or people say this guy is the nicest guy, this guy's the greatest guy, and there is nobody better than Bruno Gervais, and never will be.
Wow.
And not just there's his everyday kindness, and so much so that I felt as a staff when he was with us. And I had to be mindful of this too, but I wound up telling like our whole group, community relations, everybody, like let's not, just because he's so available and gracious and kind, he's a hockey player. So we have to make sure we're not constantly utilizing his time and his friend Chris Campoli. But here's my quick story, and it relates to a time that you know well. You know when they had the run with Doobie, right?
Oh, yeah.
He has the 4 straight wins. They need 4 straight wins to make the playoffs.
Right.
The Sunday of the Doobie poke check game,
Easter Sunday
in New Jersey.
Yeah.
My family and I were at Weill Cornell Medical Center. I have a son named Cole, who's 22 years old now and doing well, but he had heart surgery. He was born with some heart elements. The morning, that Easter Sunday morning, and this was arranged by a colleague of mine and led on the player front by Bruno Gervais. That morning, we received a package, and it was a little, I know it's only 15 years ago, but it's going to seem like 100 technology-wise. It was a DVD player. It was literally like a single DVD player. Screen comes up. And there was a DVD in it, and we, with Cole and my wife, and we hit play. And it was this montage of Bruno and Ted Nolan and Doobie and the players that day, Chris Nolan, Chris Simon, others, wishing Cole the best.
That's awesome.
And saying, we're so glad, we know you're going to make through it. And to think that they took the time to do that in the middle of all those games, I was going back and forth. we drove home that day. I wasn't going to make it to Jersey. Again, it's probably one of 3 games that from Rangers, Islanders, Devils home games that I missed. And I'm just like, this is a team that they are just not going to lose this game.
Yeah.
And we were in the car when Doobie did his poke check.
Wow.
And God bless Bruno Gervais and all those guys and Ted and everybody who did that. But I know we hear a lot of stories about guys being good. This is a personal one about like going above and beyond in the most intense part of the schedule with everything on the line, to take a few seconds take a few minutes or longer to put this DVD, this beautiful video together.
Wow, that's a great story.
Yes.
That's outstanding.
Yes.
Wow. And in dramatic fashion, they win the game for him.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And he was a great interview too. So
yeah,
he's very. It was interesting what he said about how he basically told his employers, "I'm not going to be your guy to be ripping on people,
right?
Or I'm not going to be your guy to be doing the trade rumor." He does not have that in him. And again, I wish I was more that way. Right?
He's a man of principle.
Yeah, he's just like and he has a foundation with his buddy. Who was on the Penguins, who Islander fans don't like. It's his best buddy.
Oh yes, I looked at this too. What the Max? Is it Max Talbot?
Yeah, Max Talbot.
Yes,
who happens to be a really good guy too.
Oh really?
He played a bad guy on TV.
Right.
But those 2 guys go out there and do all these incredible things for charity. So that's my Bruno stuff.
Oh, that is awesome.
Where do we go from here?
Great to have him on the show. Well, actually, where do we go? We go to What's on Tap.
All right,
Ed, how we doing over there, bud?
Doing pretty, we're a little hectic back here tonight.
Is Jay okay too? You guys good?
Jay's great.
Yeah?
Jay's great.
All right. You guys having a good time back there?
Yeah. We got a first time chatter.
Oh, love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I follow if you can burp.
Were you
Says hello,
queuing Were you queuing a segment?
Yeah. We're good. We're in.
Okay, good.
We're in.
We're on What's on Tap.
So it is time.
We don't have music for that anymore.
Yeah,
now.
No. That's
we
just
last week you weren't here. I did like a
That's
What's on
trying
Tap.
not to cough.
That's on me. I have to rehire that magnificent voice actor that I get for all the spots. I haven't had time to do it lately. So
What's on Tap? What's on Tap is a tough and challenging week.
Yes, that is exactly right. 4 games on the slate this week, starting with a huge one. I mean, it's a big game now. Even though you got 30 some odd games to go, but they're chasing Washington. They're level with them on the games played, so to speak. So they're almost chasing Washington more than they're trying to stave off Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh's got a couple of games in hand. So I feel like tomorrow night's a big game because they want to close that gap with the Washington Capitals. So I'm looking at tomorrow as being a big game this week. Obviously, you noted the game Wednesday against Boston. They're coming to town. And a team for the last couple of weeks that I'm saying do not sleep on these guys, the Buffalo Sabres. The Islanders are going into Buffalo, and they didn't come up earlier in this whole discussion with the playoffs, but I think the Sabres have to be considered here, and they might end up being a pain in the ass as you get later into the season. And then, of course, the Carolina Hurricanes on Saturday, another tough game. They're obviously leading the Metro. They're playing good hockey right now.
I don't know how the Islanders are going to do against Boston. I don't think they're a big underdog in that game. Mm-hmm. I know people will expect Boston to win. My biggest wish, and I know this might sound crazy, is that they all come through it, whoever plays, whole, so that they're good for Buffalo 24 hours later.
Yeah.
That's my biggest wish. Buffalo's got the games in hand now. The Islanders have had this in the past.
Listen.
Where they've had the games in hand and made some hay.
Right.
Buffalo does now. I still think Florida... There's still 40 games left. Is Florida going to figure this out? Is Tkachuk going to carry them on their back? So, and there'll come a point where maybe the Islanders can look ahead and not look behind. This week's going to give us a little bit better idea of where that goes.
Yeah, I think this week and also just the rest of January is going to kind of let us know if the Islanders are going to be in the playoff mix or not, because, I mean, there is so much season to go, and that goes for all teams, whether it's the teams they're competing with or the New York Islanders. They have time to get it together. They have time to rattle off another 6-game winning streak or what have you, but right now they're just not showing as much confidence that's going to happen.
And on this narrative of the 7-8 week, actually it's March 3rd is the trade deadline, so it's still a ways away. Mm-hmm. But even though the players know that they could be playing themselves if they get better, so that Lou makes a move and that could lead to moves, right? But a lot of times it's like, whoa, we're going to get Bo Horvat. And by the way, and it's not just us or the fans, he mentioned Andrew Gross, dropped the names of a few players as well in his story today. Declare. In some cases, these teams are not much worse than the Islanders. In the West, there's a bigger gap. But like the Islanders, they don't get to, as fans, any of us, we don't get to say we want that guy or can we get that guy if the Islanders haven't done their part to earn being in the discussion.
That's the point I was making with Andrew. I mean, yes, there seems to be a lot of pressure on Lou Lamoriello to add to this team, but again, I mean, how awful would it be if he goes and takes a run at somebody and they don't even get into the dance? So I feel like the team still needs to show him that they deserve that help, that he can say to himself and say to his team, all right, guys, you earned it. You're looking good in the playoff spot here. I want you guys to make a run. I'm going to go out and get something for you. But if they continue to hover around 500 mediocre hockey, I mean, Kevin Kerr has ripped him to shreds on his halfway, assessment of the team, and he's not wrong. I mean, when you're playing up and down hockey, it essentially is mediocre, and they have to get back on another streak, and hopefully they get a little healthier. We mentioned Palmieri and Pelech. Hopefully they get back soon, and they can use some of this home cooking that they got coming up to go on a run. And if they beat a team like Boston, if they beat a team like Carolina, then all of a sudden, you perk up a little bit and say, hey, maybe they can do it.
It reminds me a little bit of Garth Snow's first year as GM, and he made the trade for Ryan Smith, and we wound up getting in the playoffs, losing in the first round. But I remember hearing from friends the moment he made that trade, well, what if we don't make the playoffs?
Right.
We're not worrying about that.
No, they were in a good spot when they made
were in
that
a better spot. Yeah.
Much better spot.
It was and the big question was, would they be able to re-sign him? Then it's a waste. But they gave up O'Mara. They gave up Nielsen. It wasn't the end of the world.
Right.
I thought it was a good attempt by Garth and really no major harm there.
No, without question. It worked out well. It was all Rick DiPietro's fault while they almost missed the playoffs. But that's a discussion for another day.
Weekly Ricky mention.
Got to do it.
Okay, what's next?
What's next is Hero of the Week. Eddie, cue it up, bro. All right, folks, when you hear this song, that means it's time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels half-price hero, which this week is the Celly with grilled roast beef, sautéed onion, mushrooms, fresh mozzarella on a toasted garlic hero. Stop on into the Blue Line Deli and Bagels flagship Huntington location, mention Hockey Night New York, and get half off the Celly. Christopher Botta, I'm going to go first, and I'm going to let you know who my hero is, and I think we're on the same page here. But Ilya Sorokin, he plays all 3 games this week. Obviously, he only comes out victorious in 1. He earns himself the tie in the first game. I don't fault him at all for the shootout. There's bigger problems there on the other side with the skaters who go in and take shots. He played a good game against Minnesota. Yes, it went off the rails. I don't blame him for the goals that he let up at the end of the game. And he also has an excellent game against Montreal. For the week, a .954 save percentage, only 4 goals against. Hard to pick anybody else considering they only won 1 game. Hero of the week, Ilya Sorokin.
Hero of the season.
Yes.
Honorable mention to the Bassi family. I thought they did a beautiful job with the tribute Saturday and with his daughter and the illustrations and all that and all the support for lung cancer research. It was really great. But Ilya, man, he keeps it going. I noticed after the game last night, a lot of the writers kept on asking Coach about Sorokin. I'm like, are they all writing their Sorokin features in the next week or so?
Right.
But he deserves it. He carries his team, and he's the equalizer. He gives you a fighting chance.
Not only that, but he deserves better. Yeah. You look at his record sometimes, and it's funny. You see his goals against, you see his save percentage, and then you look at his record, and you're like, his record should be a lot better.
So they play Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday this week. Which games does Varlamov start?
I think you give Varlamov Buffalo on the Thursday in Buffalo. I think you go right back to Sorokin tomorrow. I think you got to give him Boston. And then Saturday against Carolina, as long as Sorokin had a good game on Wednesday against Boston, I say you go back to him Saturday.
I 100% agree that that's what they should do. I wonder if that's what they will do.
What do you think they'll do?
We've been wrong assuming
break out that crystal ball. Be brave.
We've been wrong in assuming
it's fine
that it's always going to be Sorokin. So I don't, I think there's a chance they go with Varlamov tomorrow.
Okay, I could see it, but we'll find out. Maybe tomorrow morning, maybe during warm-ups, but we'll find out eventually tomorrow. So there you have it, folks. That is the Hero of the Week. Remember, stop on in to the Huntington location, mention Hockey Night New York, and get half off the Celly. How's the chat going tonight, Ed?
We're pretty busy.
Yeah. Okay.
Some
We got
stuff
some
in there.
questions for Questions Brewing because it's time.
It is
Questions
time.
Brewing. So why don't we cue that up?
You're gonna do that to me?
Yeah, buddy. Let's do it.
Alrighty.
Hit some buttons.
Let's go.
It's time for Questions Brewing, brought to you by Lost Farmer Brewing Company.
All right, folks. Thanks for hanging out with us in the chat tonight. Eddie, what do you got on Questions Brewing?
This is funny. Jay is just
He looks like
teasing me
he's having a
back
good
here.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
What do you
Sorry,
got?
I'm a little under the weather, folks. Back here.
Is that right?
Had a bit of a late night.
Oh, yeah? Out in the town, buddy?
Out of the town.
Okay.
What town
Well, you
it
made
was,
it,
I
though.
couldn't tell you.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, so we'll start off with T. Boyle here.
Okay.
Do you see Aho getting waived when Pelech returns from injury?
No.
Tom.
He asks this question frequently.
Look, they're very direct, and they're very, I love it, Tom. You throw out these interesting scenarios at us. I don't think Aho is going to get waived when Adam Pelech comes. I think they'll find a way to keep him up. with the team.
Parker or Witherspoon will go back
Yeah.
to Bridgeport when that happens.
Yeah, I think that's the.
What else you got?
T. Boyle has another question.
Okay.
To add on to that, does trading for Gostisbehere make sense for the Islanders?
Possibly, yeah. Go
ahead.
ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna go with
we know what he is, but
yeah. Well, now that Adam Pelech looks like he's closer to coming back, I think it makes more sense. I thought it would have made less sense if it was kind of a decision to replace Pelech if he was going to be out long term and they need another defenseman, because Gostisbehere is known more for his offense than his defense, right? And you're not really replacing Adam Pelech with him. But look, if they want to bring in a guy who can add a little offense and on that decor, then yeah, I don't mind it. It all depends on what you're giving up. But look, I think we've learned that the defense has had a little bit of a tough time without Pelech, and they could probably even use a little bit of help with him in there.
But then T. Boyle's next question is, who sits when they acquire Shane Gostisbehere?
Well, tune in next week, Chris. Tune in next week, because that I'm not sure of. But maybe somebody goes the other way in the deal and it works out.
Anything else? And I just want to make note that there's something we want to touch on before the end of the show after the questions. Go ahead.
Sure. Mike 4652. Regarding injuries and how long players are out, do they always wait for them to be 100% before they let them back into the lineup?
Yes, except for the playoffs. I would say almost all bets are off when it comes to the playoffs, and teams are never going to admit that. But the best example of that is when after a team loses and is eliminated from the playoffs, a day or two later, there's usually that press release saying, this guy is going in for surgery for his finger. This guy is going in for arthroscopic on his, it's crazy. But for the most part in the regular season, oh yeah, when it comes to Pelech, when it comes to Palmieri, who Andrew alluded in his column, he feels it's a head injury. It was news to me. I guess I missed it until Andrew mentioned in the paper that Oliver Wahlstrom's now looking long-term. He's even speculated that it could be for the season.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was slow to catch on to that. Forgive me for that. But to answer the question, 100%. I know they say something like the player will let us know when he's ready. It's the players and the doctors and the trainers. And when everybody's on board and the player's comfortable, he'll come back. And I have no doubt that's what's going on with Pelech. Should be back soon, though, from reading the leaves.
Excellent. All right, next is Trottier 19. What are your thoughts on eliminating the shootout and playing an extra 10 minutes, like McDavid said?
Extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes in total. I don't think you'll get anybody to argue that, except maybe the Players Association would fight that. That's the only group that I could think of, that it's 5 more minutes that could possibly lead to injuries. But I agree with McDavid. Go ahead.
Ed, Trottier 19, do it as soon as effing possible. I can't stand the shootout, and it has nothing to do with the fact that the Islanders are awful at them right now. It doesn't help, but it's just you play such a tough game, right? 60-minute hockey, you're grinding it out there, and then you get to overtime, and you earn that point, all to just throw another one away. And even though you earn the point in the tie, you still feel like you lost, right? You get that shootout loss, and you earn the tie, but you don't come away with the extra point, and you're just like, man, I guess we lost that game. But get rid of it. Please go back to 10-minute overtimes, right? That used to be the way it was before they went to the shootouts, right? It was 10 minutes, right? No, it was always 5.
Oh God, unless I'm drawing a blank up.
I thought at one point it might have been, but I'm even fine with just doing the 5 minutes. If the NHLPA says it's too long to go to 10 minutes, keep it at 5. And if you want to keep it at 3-on-3, fine. It's a little less hockey, but it's exciting, and at least they're playing the actual game of hockey 3-on-3. But the shootout I can't stand. I'd rather see ties. 100%.
Yeah, it's going to increase results to go 10 minutes. Then I wouldn't go to a shootout. And as for the health thing, it is kind of amazing to me, and I don't know if there's been any like real famous goalie injuries, but it's kind of amazing that the Players Association and there's some concern about injuries, so not making these games go on too long. And then we go to the skills competition where goalies are doing splits and falling all over the place, sometimes 11 shooters deep for a regular season game to earn one more point. Every time I watch it, like if a Sorokin's in there, I'm like, you know what? I don't care if they lose at this point, end this thing. Because that cannot be good for those guys.
And I think the most important question on this topic is, would the league ever even consider getting rid of the shootout?
I most likely not. I know Bettman's kind of draw the line of sand, but I think if the players, it's great. Honestly, it's really helpful for McDavid to come out so publicly and do that. The excitement. I mean, I with the ESPN Plus, if I see a game that's going into overtime, I go to it. I know not every 3-on-3 is fantastic. Sure. It's always a bummer when there's a penalty, in my opinion. It always feels like a letdown, like we're losing out when they have to go to 4. But it's thrilling. If it went 10 minutes, it would be even crazier, and you're going to have even more results. So I'm all for it. Great question.
All right. And Trottier 19. This is the last one I see of questions, Bruin, unless anyone else wants to get some in last minute. He says, should Lane Lambert be back next season?
Too early. Yeah. But I can't guarantee that he will be or that he should be. He knows the drill. He knows the pressure that's on here. He knows the opportunity. It's not uncommon for that guy who succeeds the great coach to not last long. It's happened in Islander history several times. It's happened in Lou Lamoriello's history many times. So way too early to tell. Let's not kid ourselves, Sean. There have been times in the however episodes we've done of this Sunday show since the season started where we've said very complimentary things about Lane, and then not so much. So I think you got to give this time and give him the full season and then decide.
Yeah, and I also think the general attitude, whether it's here in the studio or throughout the fan base, seems to be more of the quote-unquote blame is resting more on the shoulders of Lou Lamoriello and perhaps the players on the ice. And I think Lane has gotten a little bit more of a pass so far.
Yeah, no question.
We done with the questions, buddy?
Yeah.
All set?
I have a bit of a question. When is Blue Line Deli going to make the Chris Botta on ciabatta sandwich?
Wow.
That's what I want to know.
I like that one. I mean, we know people over there at Blue Line. We could see what happens over there.
Yeah,
what do you think, Chris? Wanna
all your
customize
favorite
own
ingredients on ciabatta. That's the sandwich.
It would be the honor of a lifetime.
Honor of a lifetime. So we'll see. We'll check back in. Ed, great question, and thanks everybody for hanging out and throwing our questions our way here at Questions Bruin. So I think you had one more thing you wanted to know.
Yeah, I just wanted to end. We learned late this afternoon about the passing of Gino Ojic, the former Islander, most well known, of course, for playing for the Canucks. Just 52 years of age. Wow. Great guy. I've talked about this before on the show with a lot of the fighters who've come through. The Islanders, they were, as I've mentioned, we know they've had many years where the team was not good. And when you get these guys who are the instigators, not the instigators, excuse me, the pugilists, the fighters, you sometimes wonder, like, how do they have it in their heart to stand up for teammates that they just gotten to know in a season that was lost early? And Gino, just in a short time with the team, parts of 3 seasons, I believe, he stood up for everybody. He was fun to be around. He was accessible. I alluded to on Twitter taking him all the way down to ESPN for an ESPN2 back when they had their hockey show thing with Butcher Gross. He was just so much fun. Sad. He'd been unhealthy for a while now. I can't I don't know what the final cause of it was, but he's a player who came from nowhere and fought for every shift he had, going back to juniors, and was a great player. He had his best friend was Pavel Bure. They were linked forever in the greatest of ways. And so our hearts certainly go out to Gino, his family, the Islanders family, the Canucks family, the Titans family, everybody who he touched. He was a beautiful guy to me personally, and I'm going to miss him a lot. And I know everybody will in Islanders country. Short time here, but big impact.
Yes, very sad news, and a great tribute by you, Chris, to him. And it's great that you got to know him. And you know, you hear the stories as a hockey fan. You know what a great guy he was, and it seems like the guys who were throwing the fists are the ones who always get the credit for being the nicest guys, even though they seem like the meanest guys on the ice. They're the nicest guys off the ice.
He had the respect of everyone. He told me, I asked him about fighting. It was probably on that trip, and he said I always fight for a draw. He didn't need to win big. He just said, I can't lose big. That's how I stay in the game a long time. If I occasionally come out ahead, and if you look at his fights, a lot of them were more like grappling. But he had some skill too. He had some ability. There were times where both the Canucks and the Islanders, he'd be that guy you'd throw on the first line every once in a while for a shift or put in front of the net. And he loved life, and was a great friend to everybody around him, and he'll be dearly missed.
Great stuff, Chris, and Gino Ojic, rest in peace. Yes. And that is going to do it for us tonight. So, Ed, cue up that music. Folks, I want to thank you all for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. And, of course, your favorite podcast providers later on. A huge, huge thanks to our great guests tonight, Andrew Gross of Newsday and Bruno Gervais. Fantastic stuff from them. And, of course, a big thanks to our great sponsors, starting with Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. Check out BlueLineDeli.com. Also, a big thanks to Lost Farmer Brewing Company, located at 63A 2nd Street in Mineola. Check them out at lostfarmerbrewingcompany.com. And, of course, a big thanks to our newest sponsor, Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Check out mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information on them. Chris, where can we find you on Twitter?
At Chris Botta, NHL.
Great stuff. You can find myself at Shawnee Hockey. You can find the show at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the TikTok. Folks, once again, if you enjoy what we're doing here, please tell your friends, spread the word, rate, review, subscribe. Appreciate all you guys hanging out with us live on Twitch, and of course, listening later on. For Chris Botta, my name is Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night New York. For Jay, for Ed, have yourselves a great rest of your night. We will see you next time.